We're out in the little backyard vineyard and the grapes are just starting to get ready to turn purple here, and in my neighborhood we've got a lot of bird pressure, so we're going to go ahead and install some fruit zone netting to just make sure that I get to eat those grapes or make wine out of those grapes instead of all my neighborhood birds. If you like winemaking or wine growing videos, make sure to click the little subscribe button below. Now let's go ahead and get started with this little project. This type of side netting or fruit zone netting works really good for vertical type trellis systems. So that will include vertical shoot positioning, which is basically what I have here, where you've got two arms of each vine and then canes going upwards. It'll work for things like Smart Dyson, where you'll also have canes going downwards, or Scott Henry. It's very similar, but you'd have two kind of main cordones here. So if you've got this type of trellis, it's a really easy way to protect from birds without, having to pile over too much netting or deal with too much netting. I'll put a link in the video description to the netting that we're going to use, but this is just some standard side netting from Plantra. It's got kind of a knit style or like lock stitch style design where you don't run into an issue where if it starts to rip it could unzip. It's got a lot of little knots here so that doesn't happen. All you're really going to need to do this are some of these little C clips, which these ones are from Plantra. They're relatively common if you're dealing with vineyard supplies, and just your netting. And they sent me this netting kind of in a tube of sausage, I would call it, kind of like, but normally it's going to come on a 3-foot wide roll, which is going to be a little bit easier if you're using a tractor. You can just drive the tractor right up the line and unroll it, or carry the roll and unroll it. I kind of like this sausage tube style rolling, so I mentioned to them, they said they might consider offering this type for people like me that might only want 500 or 1,000 feet of netting, where normally they're selling it at 3,000 or 6,000 feet at a time. So we'll keep an eye and see if they start offering this net in kind of shorter lengths. Most vineyard trellises are going to use this standard high tensile fence wire, so these clips work really good on that. In my case, I've got guide wires, so I've got 2 sets of guide wires on the top, and I also gave myself 2 sets of guide wires on the bottom. And the reason I did that was if I do choose to kind of switch this VSP vertical shoot positioning into a Smart Dyson, all I've got to do is position some canes downward, which will help spread out the growth if it turns out to be a little bit more vigorous than I anticipated. This makes my life really easy when putting this up, but if you don't have double wires like this, not a big deal. You can still snap these little clips on to the wire, your single wire, or you can actually just kind of hook the net and just tie the net to itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'll start about a foot in from the end and put my first set of clips, and I'll mount all of the top clips upside down so I can hook the net. And I'll just kind of walk up the row and snap some clips. And I'll just pull this together. And I don't have to do this, but I don't mind kind of containing everything a little bit better here. So I'll put these about, about 2.5 feet seems to work the best. You could probably stretch it out to 3 or 4 feet if you wanted to save clips, but these clips are like dirt cheap, and you'll probably end up getting a lot more than you need if you have a small vineyard like me. And then we'll do the same thing and run these clips on the bottom, and on the bottom I'm going to point the C shape downwards. Now what we'll do is we'll take the end of our netting and I'm just going to loop it around the end post. And then we'll clip it onto our little C-clip thing here. Wrap it around, and I'm only going to hook the top right now. So we'll wrap it around and we'll clip it here. And then I can just walk right down the row with the box. Now we're just going to work our way down the row, and I'm just going to kind of clip as I go, and I'm just going to fasten the top for now. When you get to the other end, just go ahead and cut it off. I'll just leave enough so I can loop it around the end post again here. Now we'll just go ahead and just start clipping to the bottom wire here, and we'll work our way backwards up the row. Now we just have to do the whole other side of this row, which is even easier because we've now already got all of our little clips in place. So we'll just wrap it around the end. Then we'll just go right down the row, clip it to the top. And now we'll go right back the bottom and clip the bottom. So that's it. This whole row is done. The whole thing probably took about 15 minutes. So about 15 minutes per 65-foot row. And I really have no idea what I'm doing compared to somebody that would do this all day for a day. I'm sure you could really rip through it pretty quick. And I'll mention, I mean, it's not going to be as impenetrable as if you just completely covered your whole vineyard with a net. It's probably 95% effective. There's some little spots a bird could possibly get in. We're going to see how good it works towards the end of the season, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to be in a really way better spot than if I didn't net this at all. Some things you can do if you find that your net is touching your berries, which I really don't have much of an issue here. I've got enough leaves kind of holding it back. But what they mentioned I could do is you could basically use some spare metal coat hangers and periodically place them on one of your wires just to hold things apart here. Like I said, that's not an issue at all here. Some other things I'll mention is if you're going to pull leaves, which I did, at first I wanted to just expose the east side to sun, but now that I'm putting this net, which will have tiny bit of shade. Now these are about 1 centimeter square, so it's letting most of the light through. But because of that, I did feel pretty confident pulling the leaves on the west side too, where I normally would be a little bit concerned about sunburn if I pulled the leaves on the west side. If you're going to pull any clusters, you're going to want to pull those before you put the net up. Pull your leaves before you put the net up. Make sure your shoots are positioned before you put the net up, so you don't want to put it up before the shoots have made it past the top wire. And in reality, you just don't need to put it up until the berries are getting to the point where they're starting to turn purple and they're becoming little targets for those birds to eat. I haven't had a single bird issue with my grapes being green right here, but when they turn purple, it's going to be game over without any netting. When the season's over, just got this giant bag, so I'll just take these nets off and I'll bundle them up. They should be good for about 7 seasons. These clips are purple, so they're relatively UV resistant compared to some of like the white clips, ones that are just not gonna, they're gonna let those sun rays through to the plastic a little bit easier and get a little bit more brittle. So the purple clips should be pretty good, should last the life of the net, but again, the clips really aren't very expensive and also not very hard to put up. So there you have it. That's how you install some side netting on your vineyard. Hope this was pretty helpful for you. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to swing by my website, smartwinemaking.com, where you can learn a little bit more detail about winemaking projects and some wine growing projects. Thanks for watching.